She passes her mother's bedroom door. She hears strange sounds. Curiosity pulls her closer. Peeking through the slightly open door, she sees something that leaves her breathless. Her mother, Evelyn, lost in a private moment with something unfamiliar. Her heart pounding, Amara stumbles back into her room. Her world suddenly changed. The house was silent, save for the faint hum of the ceiling fan and the occasional chirp of a lonely cricket outside. The dim glow of the moon spilled through the half-open window in Amara's room, casting eerie shadows on the walls. She stirred in bed, her throat dry, the lingering taste of sleep on her tongue. With a quiet sigh, she pushed the covers off and tiptoed toward the kitchen for a glass of water. As she moved through the dim hallway, a soft, unfamiliar sound caught her attention. It wasn't the creak of the wooden floorboards or the rustling of leaves outside. It was something else, something rhythmic, breathless. It came from behind her mother's closed door. Her heart skipped. At first, she thought her mother was crying. The thought made her pause. Since her father's passing, Evelyn had been strong, never shedding a tear in front of her children. Could this be the moment she finally broke down? Amara took a step closer, pressing her ear lightly against the wooden door. Then she heard it again, low, muffled sounds mixed with heavy breathing. It wasn't sorrow. It wasn't grief. It was something else. A cold shiver ran down Amara's spine. The door was slightly ajar, just enough for a sliver of light to spill into the hallway. Curiosity, laced with an uneasiness she couldn't quite explain, pulled her closer. With hesitant fingers, she nudged the door just a fraction wider and peered inside. Her breath caught in her throat. There, bathed in the soft glow of the bedside lamp, was her mother, Evelyn, lost in an intimate moment with something Amara had never seen before. Her mother's face was twisted in pleasure, her body responding to an object Amara didn't understand. For a moment, she was frozen. Then, panic surged through her like wildfire. She sucked in a sharp breath and took a hurried step back, her hand flying to her mouth. She turned on her heel, nearly tripping over her own feet as she fled down the hall and back into the safety of her room, slamming the door shut behind her. She pressed her back against it, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Her world had suddenly changed. Everything she thought she knew about her mother, about the quiet nights in their home, about the lonely life Evelyn had lived since her father's death. It all blurred into something unrecognizable. She wasn't sure what she had just witnessed, but she knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. Sleep refused to come. Amara lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying the moment. She had stumbled upon something she was never meant to see. No matter how hard she tried, the image of her mother, lost in a moment of private pleasure, clung to her thoughts like a stubborn shadow. She squeezed her eyes shut, willing herself to forget, but it was useless. It was burned into her memory. Morning came too quickly. The golden rays of the sun spilled into her room, but they did nothing to chase away the weight pressing against her chest. She moved mechanically through her morning routine, brushing her teeth, pulling on her school uniform, and tying her hair back. Yet everything felt different, wrong. At the breakfast table, Evelyn greeted her with a warm smile, just as she did every morning. "Did you sleep well, sweetheart?" Amara hesitated. For the first time in her life, she didn't know how to answer her mother. Instead of seeing the strong, loving woman who had raised her alone, she now saw someone with secrets, someone who hid a side of herself Amara had never imagined existed. "Yeah," she mumbled, avoiding her mother's gaze. But as she stirred her tea, her mind swirled with unspoken questions. Why had her mother never remarried? Was she truly happy living this way? Did she miss having someone by her side? And most of all, why did it bother Amara so much? She spent the entire school day distracted, her friends' voices blending into background noise. Even when Sonia, her best friend, nudged her playfully and asked if she was daydreaming about some boy, Amara forced a laugh. unable to explain that her mind was tangled in thoughts far more complicated. The moment she got home, she found herself watching her mother closely. The way Evelyn hummed while cooking, the way she tied her wrapper around her waist, the way she smiled so effortlessly. How could she act so normal when Amara had seen her in such a vulnerable state? That night, Amara lay in bed, the weight of her thoughts suffocating. She had always believed adulthood was about responsibilities, work, bills, taking care of children. But now she realized there was something else, something hidden, a need, a loneliness, a desire she had never considered before. And the worst part? She wasn't sure she was ready to understand it. One afternoon, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Amara stood in the hallway, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure it would betray her. Her mother had just left for the market. Her younger brother was outside playing with friends. And for the first time in days, she was alone, completely alone. Her feet moved before she could stop herself, leading her to Evelyn's bedroom door. It was shut, as it always was when her mother wasn't around. But today, it felt different. It felt like a door to something forbidden, something that both terrified and intrigued her. A shaky breath escaped her lips as she turned the knob. The door creaked open, revealing the familiar scent of her mother's perfume, the neatly made bed, the wooden wardrobe that had always seemed ordinary until now. She hesitated for a moment. Was she really going to do this? Her fingers trembled as she reached for the wardrobe handle and pulled it open. Inside, rows of carefully folded clothes greeted her. Evelyn had always been meticulous. Everything had its place. Amara's stomach twisted. Her mother had no idea that her safe, private world was about to be invaded. With unsteady hands, she rummaged through the layers of fabric, lifting dresses, pushing aside blouses, until her fingers brushed against something unfamiliar. Her breath hitched. She pulled out a small, locked box. It was smooth, black, and slightly heavy in her hands. Amara swallowed hard. She already knew what was inside. Her heart thundered in her chest as she searched the drawers, desperately looking for a key. It didn't take long. Beneath a stack of old letters, she found it. Small, silver, almost innocent in appearance. With a final, shaky inhale, she slid the key into the lock and turned it. The lid creaked open, and there they were, the objects of her mother's secret life. Amara's hands clenched as she stared at them, heat rushing to her cheeks. They were strange, unfamiliar, yet they explained everything. The sounds, the loneliness, the moments Evelyn thought no one was watching. A strange mix of emotions crashed over her: fear, curiosity, shame, power. She lifted one of the objects, its weight foreign in her hands. What did it feel like? What did it mean? Why did her mother need these? A thought slithered into her mind, dark and persistent. What if she tried to understand? She shoved the box back into the wardrobe and slammed the door shut, her breathing ragged. What had she just done? Why did it awaken something inside her that she couldn't explain? The discovery haunts Amara, no matter how hard she tries to push it out of her mind. The questions keep circling back, gnawing at her thoughts. Why did she feel so drawn to it? Why did it leave her restless at night? Her heart pounding with something she couldn't quite name. Desperate for clarity, she confides in her best friend, Sonia, the one person she trusts to be honest with her. They sat together in Sonia's small, cluttered bedroom, the walls plastered with posters of influencers and celebrities, the soft hum of music playing in the background. Amara's voice is barely a whisper. Sonia, I saw something online, and I can't stop thinking about it. Sonia raises an eyebrow, intrigued. What do you mean, something? Hesitating, Amara fidgets with the hem of her shirt. She struggles to put her confusion into words, to explain the way it had both repelled and fascinated her. When she finally manages, Sonia lets out a laugh. Oh, Amara, is that all? You're acting like you just uncovered a government secret. It's normal. She smirks knowingly. You're just too innocent. Amara frowns. But it felt wrong. Sonia rolls her eyes and pulls out her phone. It's not wrong. It's just the world we live in. Let me show you something. With a few taps, she opens up websites Amara has never seen before. Stories, images, videos. Things she never knew existed. Things she wouldn't have dared to explore on her own. At first, Amara only watches in stunned silence. She tells herself it's just research, just a way to understand what she stumbled upon. But the more she sees, the more she feels something shifting inside her. Curiosity turns into fascination. Fascination turns into something darker. She starts staying up late, alone in the dim glow of her phone screen, unable to stop herself from diving deeper. It begins as an occasional distraction, but soon, she finds herself thinking about it constantly. During classes, at home, even in church, a part of her knows she should stop. But another part, the part that tingles with excitement and fear, whispers that it's too late. She's already falling into a world she cannot escape. Evelyn senses it before she can name it. The shift in the air, the unsettling distance growing between her and her daughter. Amara, once so full of life, now moves through the house like a shadow of herself. Her once bright eyes, always eager to share stories about school and friends, now carry a weight Evelyn doesn't understand. The laughter that used to echo through the walls has faded, replaced by silence or the occasional sharp response. At first, Evelyn tells herself it's just a phase. Teenagers change. They withdraw. They keep secrets. But this feels different. She notices how Amara barely meets her eyes anymore, how she spends hours locked in her room, her phone always within reach. The late nights, the hurried way she closes tabs when Evelyn walks in, the way she jumps at sudden noises, even at the dinner table, where they once shared stories and jokes. Amara now picks at her food in silence, lost in thought. One evening, as Evelyn watches her daughter push rice around her plate, she finally voices her concern. Amara, is something wrong? Amara barely looks up. No, I'm fine. It's a lie. Evelyn knows it. A mother always knows. She presses gently. Are you sure? You've been distant lately. You don't talk to me like you used to. Amara forced a smile. It's just school, Mom. I have a lot on my mind. The excuse sounds reasonable enough, but Evelyn isn't convinced. The mother in her warns that something is amiss, a creeping sense of dread that tightens around her heart. But the woman in her, the woman who has spent years burying regrets, locking away the mistakes of her past, refuses to believe it. Could it be that her own choices, the things she swore she left behind, are now finding their way back through her daughter? Late at night, long after Amara has shut herself in her room, Evelyn sits on the edge of her own bed, staring into the darkness. Her hands tremble as old memories stir, memories she thought she had outrun. She whispers a prayer, but deep down, she fears that she already knows the answer. Something is wrong, and she's terrified to find out what it is. It starts like any other day, but by the time the sun sets, Amara knows she has made a mistake, one she can never take back. For weeks, she had been towing the edge, dipping her feet into a world she didn't fully understand. Curiosity had turned into obsession, and obsession had led her to places she never imagined she would go. She kept numerous male friends, even older men, collecting money and gifts from them. She even got herself a toy as well. One day, she brought one of the toys home in her school bag, and when her mom wasn't around, she engaged her younger brother to use it on her, telling him the toy was a game their mom also played. But something happened, something changed. A moment of recklessness, an experiment gone too far. It happens so fast she barely has time to process it. A single tap, a decision made in haste, a line crossed before she even realizes where she's standing. And then, regret. It floods her, cold and suffocating, wrapping around her chest like a vice. Amara drops her phone onto her bed, her hands shaking as if she's been burned. Her heart pounds. Her breath comes in shallow gasps. What has she done? She squeezes her eyes shut, willing the moment away, but the weight of it lingers. The guilt is instant, sharp, and unrelenting. She tells herself it's not that serious, that people do worse things all the time, but no matter how hard she tries to justify it, something deep inside her whispers the truth. She has gone too far. She stares at her reflection in the mirror, searching for the girl she used to be, but all she sees is a stranger with wide, fearful eyes. The shame is unbearable. Her mother would be devastated if she knew. Her father, she can't even imagine. And God, the thought of him makes her stomach twist. She wants to undo it, to erase the moment as if it never happened. But she can't. Instead, the guilt settles into her bones, heavy and unmoving. For the first time, Amara understands that curiosity without understanding is a dangerous thing. And now she must live with the consequences. Evelyn wasn't looking to snoop. She had only stepped into Amara's room to borrow a hairbrush, something she had done countless times before. But as she reached for the drawer, something caught her eye, a small, velvet pouch tucked beneath a pile of clothes. It was too out of place, too deliberately hidden. Curiosity prickled at her, and against her better judgment, she picked it up. The moment she opened it, her breath caught in her throat. Inside was a tiny, folded stack of cash, far too much for Amara to have on her own. But that wasn't all. There were expensive gifts, a set of jewelry Evelyn recognized from a luxury boutique, and her stomach twisted, a hotel key card. Her mind raced, her fingers trembling as she put everything back. The walls of the room seemed to close in on her. Evelyn didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was staring her in the face. Just as she was about to step out, the door swung open. Amara froze at the sight of Evelyn holding the pouch. Her face darkened instantly, panic flashing in her eyes before giving way to something fiercer, anger. "What do you think you're doing?" Amara snapped, storming toward her. Evelyn held up the pouch, her voice barely above a whisper. "Amara, what is this?" Amara snatched it from her hands and clutched it to her chest. "None of your business." Evelyn shook her head. "None of my business." "Amara, where did you get all this money? Who gave you these things?" Amara's jaw tightened. "Why do you care?" "Because I know what this means," Evelyn said, her voice breaking. "Tell me you're not doing what I think you are." A bitter laugh escaped Amara's lips. "Oh, so now you want to act like the moral police." She took a step closer, her eyes burning with defiance. "You can do it, but I can't." Evelyn staggered back as if she had been slapped. "What are you talking about?" Amara let out a humorless chuckle, shaking her head. "You think I don't know? You think I don't see the way you come home with new things? Money you never explain? You did what you had to do, didn't you? Well, so am I." Evelyn's horror deepened. "It's not the same." Amara's voice rose, raw with hurt and rage. "Oh, it's not the same when it's me. When it's you, it's survival, but when it's me, it's shame." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "You don't get to judge me, Mom." The weight of the confrontation settled between them like a storm cloud, thick with betrayal and unspoken truths. Evelyn had thought she was protecting Amara, but now she realized she had only been lying to herself. The truth was out, and it was uglier than she ever imagined. The house was no longer a home. It had become a battlefield. Amara moved through the rooms like a ghost, her silence sharper than any insult she could have thrown. She refused to look at Evelyn, refused to acknowledge her presence. When Evelyn spoke, Amara either walked away or gave her nothing but icy glares. The air between them was thick with tension, filled with unspoken words and raw resentment. At first, Evelyn tried to reason with her. "Amara, we need to talk," she said one evening, standing at the doorway to her daughter's room. Amara didn't even glance up from her phone. "There's nothing to talk about." Evelyn stepped forward. "Please, I just want to." "I said there's nothing to talk about." Amara snapped, standing up so abruptly that her chair scraped against the floor. Her eyes, once full of warmth and trust, now burned with defiance. Evelyn's heart clenched. She had never felt so powerless, so lost. Nights became longer. The house, once filled with laughter and shared stories, now echoed with silence. Evelyn sat alone at the dining table, staring at the empty chair where Amara used to sit. Food went untouched. Conversations were one-sided. And the worst part? Evelyn could feel her daughter slipping away. She lay awake at night, tormented by memories of when Amara was just a little girl, running into her arms, trusting her completely. When had it all changed? Had it been gradual? Or had she simply been too blind to see the distance growing between them? She wondered if she had failed as a mother. Maybe it wasn't just this fight. Maybe it was everything. The loneliness that had settled into their home over the years, the secrets she had kept, the way she had hidden her own struggles, thinking she was protecting Amara when in reality, she had only built walls between them. Was this her fault? Had her choices, her mistakes, driven her daughter into rebellion? While Evelyn was drowning in guilt, Amara was spiraling. She started staying out late, coming home reeking of things Evelyn didn't want to name. Her phone became her world, filled with conversations Evelyn had no access to. And then there were nights when Amara wouldn't come home at all. Evelyn's worst fears gnawed at her. She wanted to reach out to pull Amara back. But every time she tried, her daughter pushed harder, further away. One night, Evelyn waited. She sat by the window, staring into the dark, waiting for the sound of the gate creaking open, for the shuffle of footsteps announcing Amara's return. But the hours stretched on, and there was nothing. Panic took hold. She called Amara's phone. No answer. She called again and again. Each unanswered ring sent her heart deeper into her stomach. Where was she? Who was she with? What was happening to her? Evelyn pressed her fingers against her temples, trying to breathe, trying to think. But all she could see was her daughter slipping away, running towards something she did not fully understand, something that could destroy her. And Evelyn had no idea how to stop it. Evelyn had been waiting up again, the familiar weight of worrying pressing against her chest. The clock on the wall glowed past midnight, each passing minute stretching her anxiety tighter like a rope about to snap. Her younger son was sleeping, and the house was silent except for the occasional creaks of the wind outside. Then the front door creaked open. Evelyn sat upright, her heart pounding. Footsteps, unsteady and hesitant, shuffled toward the living room, and then she saw her. Amara stood in the doorway, her face streaked with tears, her shoulders trembling. Her once confident posture was gone, replaced by something fragile, something broken. Her makeup was smudged, her clothes wrinkled and slightly damp. She looked lost. Evelyn's breath hitched. Amara! She called softly, afraid that speaking, too, loudly would shatter whatever fragile thread was holding her daughter together. Amara's lips quivered as she took a slow step forward, then another, and another, until, finally, she crumpled onto the couch. She buried her face in her hands, and for the first time in a long while, the silence between them broke. "I don't know who I am anymore," Amara whispered, her voice so small, so full of pain that it made Evelyn's chest ache. The walls crumbled. Evelyn rushed forward, kneeling beside her. "Baby." She reached out hesitantly, then, seeing no resistance, pulled Amara into her arms. And Amara didn't pull away. "Mom, I don't know what would have happened. I was kidnapped already by a group of bad boys. They thought they could outsmart the police at a checkpoint. But their plans failed. I was rescued and they were arrested." She clung to her mother, sobbing into her shoulder, her whole body shaking. "I thought I could handle it," she choked out. "I thought I was strong enough." Evelyn held her tighter, stroking her back the way she used to when Amara was a little girl afraid of the dark. "You don't have to do this alone," she whispered. Amara shook her head violently. "You don't understand. I've already messed up. I've done things I can't take back." Her voice cracked. "I thought I could keep control, but now I don't even know who I am anymore." Evelyn felt tears burn behind her own eyes. "You are my daughter," she said firmly. "No matter what you've done, no matter what has happened, you are mine. And I love you." Amara sobbed harder. "I'm scared, Mom." Evelyn closed her eyes, feeling the full weight of her daughter's pain. "I know, baby," she murmured. "I know." They sat there for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms, their broken pieces pressing together like a puzzle trying to mend itself. Evelyn had hope. Amara was still here, and as long as she was here, Evelyn would do whatever it took to bring her back. It wasn't easy. Healing never is. Amara had to confront the choices she made, the wounds she carried, and the pain she tried to numb. Evelyn had to face her own mistakes, her silences, and the ways she had unknowingly pushed her daughter away. But they did it together. Therapy, long conversations, and nights of tears and laughter helped them rebuild what had been broken. Evelyn learned to listen without judgment, and Amara learned that vulnerability wasn't weakness. There were setbacks, moments when the past threatened to pull Amara under again, moments when Evelyn questioned if she was enough. But every time, they held on to each other a little tighter. And one day, as they sat together on the porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Amara reached for her mother's hand and squeezed it gently. "I'm still figuring things out," she admitted. Evelyn smiled, squeezing back. "Me too." And that was enough. They had found their way back to each other, and this time, they weren't letting go. Life isn't always perfect, but no matter how broken things seem, healing is possible. Communication, love, and patience can mend even the deepest wounds. Amara and Evelyn's story reminds us that it's never too late to find your way back to those who truly matter. Have you ever experienced a situation where a loved one drifted away and you had to rebuild that relationship? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story and want more powerful, emotional, and thought-provoking content, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out. See you in the next one. Stay inspired. Love you all.